Joining us now is the man himself, Alvin Bragg, Mr. District Attorney. Thank you for sitting through the wrestling videos and the sword dances, but it was all of a piece, serving the point that you are one of the very few people in this country that has managed to hold Mr. Trump, or at least his organizations, accountable.
Well, thanks for having me. The wrestling video in particular was quite interesting.
Yeah, well, you know, we didn't shy away from playing it, shall we say that. What has stunned me in the case for which you got a jury to convict on all counts is the excess of evidence that you had. Can you tell me a little bit about some of these pieces that the audience was treated to, the viewing audience, the jury, whoever you want to specify? Nonetheless, there is a memo signed and okayed by Donald Trump reducing staffers' salary by $72,000. One assumes because he's going to be getting other perks from the organization. There's checks for thousands of dollars signed by President Trump to Columbia Grammar and Prep School, paying for the tuition of employees. Were you surprised that the paper trail was this explicit?
Well, you know, one of the great things about a jury trial, which is, you know, a centerpiece of our democracy, is the laying bare of evidence in open court. And so the public gets to see, in this instance, the inner workings of a 13-year scheme, which was, more than, about greed and cheating and lying, all laid bare the inner workings of the Trump organization. So, look, the rigor of the investigation was second to none. The public servants that worked on this and built the case, certainly indebted to for what they brought in lining up that evidence and then presenting it in a court of law, leading to the conviction. So, having worked on complex investigations for 20 plus years, we follow the facts, and that's what happened here. And so not surprised as things unfolded as we thought they would in court. Obviously, in a trial, there's always a little bit of a twist and turn, but not surprised and gratified that, one, the jury saw it as we did, but also the broader public got to see the inner workings of the Trump organization on display.
Can you explain, as you understand it, what was the operating structure of this organization?
Well, look, fundamentally, I mean, the name is in the title, right? So there's the Trump organization. There are two Trump corporations that were on trial here. And the core of the conduct was just senior officials in the corporations being given benefits and not paying taxes on them. And the issue that the defense sort of really honed in on was, well, okay, it's just those folks. This was not for the benefit of the corporation. And so that became a significant issue in the trial, and us laying out, so, well, okay, who hired these folks? I mean, who went through the documents, and what were their level in the organization? These were not mid-level or level. These were high managerial agents, as the law calls them. And so, all of that of a piece put together, obviously it wasn't in the jury room, but I think that's, we viewed as essential to sort of rebutting the sort of claim from the defense that, nothing to see here, just a couple of rogue employees. It's hard to have a rogue CFO. Yeah. That's someone who's reporting directly in, literally in the C-suite, as we would call it.
Is it your understanding that it was effectively a culture of fraud that started from the top down?
Well, certainly in this instance, something that goes 13 years, that's quite a long period of time, and is engaged in by people at the highest levels of the organization, sufficient to, and in this instance did happen, for corporate liability, right? So this was a case against the corporations, and certainly was sufficient. The jury found so. And so that's what this was about. And we think we know at this point now is that we have a conviction.
Allen Weisselberg was the star witness in all of this, and he is going to face some jail time. He gave you a lot of information in exchange for a reduced jail sentence. Can you tell us a little bit more detail about what his expected sentence is, and will he be serving it at Rikers Island?
Sure. So, having done this for some time, something that I found to be really important, not essential, but important in the telling of this kind of a scheme is a narrator, an inside voice. And so we thought that was important here. As you said, he entered a plea of guilty. Agreed to testify truthfully, and he was a big piece of giving us that inner workings so we could see it. You're right. He's now the next step is to him. He's going to be sentenced. That is up to the judge ultimately. But if you are sentenced to in the city, Rikers is our city jail, and so if he's city to jail time, which we expect it'll be 5 months or 6 months, then that time would customarily be served in Rikers.
Which is not known as a pleasant place to spend time. There's been a lot of investigation into the way inmates have been treated at Rikers. There's a lot of violence at Rikers. This is something I'm sure Mr. Weisselberg is not looking forward to. And yet there is some talk that because your investigation thus far has not indicted President Trump, and because there is this evidence that we showed at the beginning of our segment with his name on some of these documents, that Mr. Weisselberg could actually be used as leverage, that he could be pushed potentially even further in an investigation into Mr. Trump himself. Is that barking up the wrong tree, as it were, if one thinks that that is something that could happen?
Look, we follow the facts where they take us.
Yeah.
And, here, the nature of the cooperation was testified truthfully as to these transactions, this tax fraud. And it was limited there. It was something that certainly in other cases I've done, broader cooperation. That's something that ultimately is up to Mr. Weisselberg, right? That decision whether or not to share more, if in fact there's more for him to share. We will continue to follow the facts, as your lead talked about. I said this is a chapter in the book, a consequential chapter. Conviction for corporations. Founded by a former president, but a chapter. And we've had another team, while you've seen the stupendous team led by Susan Hoffinger and Joshua Steinglass in court. We've had other members of the team who weren't in court, who've been continuing the broader investigation. So we'll go where the facts take us. We will, if people have things of interest to us, we will certainly listen.
What is your message to other people who are investigating the former president right now? There's a lot of swirl. Should people feel emboldened by the conviction that you won yesterday?
I have no message. I've been doing this for about 20 plus years. I'm a former federal prosecutor, so as your lead talks about what the Department of Justice is doing, those are accomplished lawyers. I know now we have a special counsel who happens to be an alum of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. But they're doing their investigations. We're doing ours. We'll proceed apace. I'm sure they're doing what we're doing, which is following the facts. They're distinct investigations, as I understand them, about different pieces of conduct. And so we're going to do our job. We're going to follow the facts as they apply to conduct in Manhattan. And my having worked for the Department of Justice and the New York State Attorney General's office, my understanding and what I would expect to happen is that others doing the other investigations will follow the facts where they take them within their jurisdiction. Well,
you have thus far managed to do something that few have, which is to hold the Trump businesses accountable. A Trump, whether it's an organization or a charity, has been held accountable by you and the efforts of those in your office. So congratulations on doing so. I think a lot of the American public is eager to know how this book that you are working on ends. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. District Attorney.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.